Okay. We are live. Thank you very much. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Select Board meeting for Monday, January 28th of 2019. We are in the second floor Select Board Town Hall meeting room in the Groton Town Hall. At 7 o'clock, we will have announcements followed by a public comment period. At 7:10, we'll be handling an item where there'll be no public comment. Request for investigation by Jennifer Evans against Town Manager Mark Haddad. I'll explain more when that agenda item comes up. At 7:30 or thereabouts, we anticipate the Town Manager's report with the Select Board's agenda schedule. Approve a letter of request for the grant to the Montechusett Regional Planning Commission to update the town's housing production plan. Consider approving a one-day all-alcohol license for Neshoba Chamber of Commerce Taste of Neshoba to be held on Tuesday, March 19th, 2019, from 5:30 p.m. to 8 p.m. Consider transferring the operational and oversight authority of the Four Corners Sewer District to the Groton Sewer Commission. Approve Conservation Commission's acceptance of Longley Road parcel from Calvin Moore and Groton Woods parcel from Robert Lacombe pursuant to MGL C40 Section 8C. As road commissioners, approve request from police chief to designate no parking areas in the High Street. Approve a common victual license for the NESSP Temple. Consider ratifying the town manager's appointment of Gail Chalmers to the Emergency Response Committee. Apologize for mispronouncing that.
I spoke the name wrong. I apologize.
I was reading as it was written.
Apologize. My fault.
Spelled. It's Chalmers.
I forgot the L.
Approved calendar year 2019 goals of the Select Board and the Town Manager. Review the FY 2019 second quarter fiscal reports. Discuss and review proposed fiscal 2020 operating budget. And just so the awareness, these may be taken out of order. And at 7:45, we plan to be in joint session with the Park Commission to consider appointing Don Black to the Park Commission to fill a vacancy on the commission. Under other business, we have consider submitting a letter of support for the library trustees' application for CPC funds for library roof repair. Pursuant to the town manager's review policy, the chair is to disseminate the clean town manager performance review form to board members for board action. Discussion to approve a new manager application for the Forge and Vine Groton Inn related to alcohol license. And then we have our ongoing issues list, followed by select board liaison reports, followed by the minutes for the regular scheduled meeting of January 14th, 2019. Subsequent to that, we will go into executive session pursuant to MGL C30A, Section 21A, Clause 2, to conduct a strategy session for bargaining, purpose of the fire chief's contract. And we will also go in executive session pursuant to MGL C30A, Section 21A, Clause 7, to comply with, to review and consider for release executive session minutes. And then when we will come back into regular session to consider approving a new three-year contract for Fire Chief Steele McCurdy and to vote to release various executive session minutes. Hopefully that will be followed by adjournment. Under announcements, with apologies to the board, I'm slower than normal today. I'm about 3 hours sleep and about three hours behind time zone. So I will try to keep up with everybody, but a little latitude would be appreciated. If I ask you to repeat yourself. Are there any other announcements from members I know Mr. Dad has several he'd like to make.
Yes, if I could go first, Mr. Chairman. Yep. I'd like to make an announcement that the Middlesex Savings Charitable Foundation has provided two $15,000 gifts, one to the Groton Public Library and one to the Friends of the Groton Elders. So it's a very generous donation that can be used for any purpose that the library trustees and the Friends feel appropriate. So thank you to the Middlesex Savings Charitable Foundation. Also, I announced this at the Finance Board of Select Board meeting on Saturday. Lawrence Academy has changed the way in which they're going to be presenting their pilot payment, their voluntary pilot payment to the town of Groton. In previous years, they had a $25,000 pilot, and they paid about $31,000 for properties that they had taken off the tax rolls for a total payment of about $56,000. Recently, they put some properties that they owned, they sold to people who were not nonprofit, and they put back on the tax rolls. So Lawrence Academy and I got together last week, and instead of trying to figure all that out. They are going to change the way in fiscal 19, the way they pay their voluntary pilot payment to the town. They're gonna make a one-time, they're gonna pay on an annual basis $60,000. And then each year, they're gonna set aside $15,000 for a total of $75,000 to the town to use as the town deems appropriate for special projects and the like. And that's gonna be an annual contribution of $75,000 broken out that way. So I'm very pleased, and I thank Lawrence Academy for their willingness to work with the town of Groton. The final announcement that I want to make happened on Saturday and today, based on the budget. When Chief Luth, police chief, came into the meeting on Saturday, to the joint meeting, he talked about the dog that we had that passed away, and the need to want to start that program again. And during that discussion, it was asked how much a dog would cost for the town, and we had it in the budget between $3,000 and $5,000. So at that meeting, Art Prest volunteered and donated $3,000 for the dog. And today, John Geiger came into my office and gave me a check for $1,000 for the dog. And I want to thank the both of them for their generosity. So we're going to have the Cadillac of dogs. Right, Chief? That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
All right, are there, I see Mr. Geiger's hand raised. Yes, sir.
On the 18th and 19th, I attended the Mass Municipal Association's annual meeting in Boston. I participated in half a dozen or so workshops on various activities related to town government, and there were other members of the town staff that were there, and it's a very educational experience.
Okay. Are there any other announcements?
Nick?
Nick? No? Oh. You're deferring to Anna, okay.
Yes. I wanted to announce that the Open Space and Recreation Plan Committee is hosting a public hearing this Thursday, the 31st of January at 7 p.m. I want to thank the Groton Inn for hosting us. It will be held at the Groton Inn at 7 o'clock. And we will be discussing the proposed plan. You can find it on the town website. It's the first item on the webpage. And there will be light refreshments being served. So I'm hoping people will come. The 5-year action plan update is quite important. It kind of describes who does what in town. And when you look at all of the entities in town who contribute to the welfare and to both recreation and to the maintenance and so forth of our public facilities, you hopefully people will come and attend. Thank you.
Thank you. Another announcement? No? Announcement or public comment? That's fine. The step's coming next, so we're good. All right, under public comment. You're first.
I just wanted to comment to make sure it was clear to all my dismay with, I know that there's going to be no public comment on the next part on investigation request by me. I just want to make it clear that I filed a complaint with HR under some assumption that there's some level of confidentiality. My complaint was never acknowledged. The first I knew that it was on the agenda this was on the agenda for tonight was when I got a call 48 hours after the agenda was posted. I got a call from a resident asking me about it, and I have now also been forwarded emails that it's been on part of the talk about. I just very feared the backlash of filing a complaint based on what's happened in the past, and I just ask that when faced with this in the future, that you consider, I don't understand why my name was published this week when 2 weeks ago a different person's name wasn't published. It's just, it feels like it's either ineptness or another form of intimidation, and I just wanted to share that with you and ask that the board review their process if and when they receive complaints in the future. I feel very exposed.
As a point of clarity on the January 14th item, I was the one who filed that investigation item. So therefore, I was already noticed as the chair filing it. So that was me filing it. So that's clear. All right. Are there any other public comments? All right. Seeing none. We will begin our 7:10. I'm going to make a couple statements first. So we have Brian Mazur. Brian Mazur is the Labor Counsel for the town of Groton. Do you have a comment prior?
I guess I do. I just would like to let you know that apparently the voice is distorted at home for people who are receiving it. I just got
So people cannot hear us very well at home. Yeah, we don't know. We'll try to. Is it my voice in particular, or everybody's voice? I can try to speak more clearly.
Sorry, I just wanted to.
No, I appreciate that. That's too bad. We'd like to have more clarity and transparency through these transmissions. So Brian Mazur is here representing the select board and the town as the town's labor council. I've been working with him through this investigation process to handle this in the most appropriate fashion, legally as well as according to the board's policies. This is an item where the board will be deciding, there's a small scope in this item, we'll be deciding whether or not to proceed with an investigation, and should that investigation be done internally or externally. The board will be confined and limited to those parameters during our discussions regarding the alleged complaint. And we will not be having public comment due to the specific nature of this personnel request. So I appreciate your trust in your select board following the guidance of town council to try to keep everybody's rights appropriately sustained. You have anything to add, Brian?
No, I don't, Mr. Chairman.
Barry, explain that, why we're.
Yes, so and Brian can maybe elaborate a little bit. The reason this is an open session is that any town employee has the right to have a complaint or investigation discussion held in executive session, or should they so choose in public session. This particular one, the individual that the allegation was made against just chose to have it in public session, so that's why we're here tonight. For all intents and purposes, town council has informed me that we handle this the same protocol-wise, whether it was in open session or executive session. It's simply that it is in open session.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Point of order.
Yes.
The complaint that was filed was not an alleged complaint. It was a complaint.
It's a complaint that alleges certain things, correct? Point of clarification. Appreciate that. Okay. Okay, I guess let's get to it. So the first item of business is, do we wish to proceed or not with an investigation? And, I also have one more clarification. Mr. Haddad may have an opportunity to speak. And I guess it's up to Mr. Haddad when he chooses that opportunity, so.
Again.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering if we can start by having Brian kind of outline the choices that are before us a little bit and what the possible paths are, so that we're all clear what we're thinking through.
Before town council explains the process, don't we need to discuss what the complaint was? No? Okay.
Okay, so just in terms of the process, you have an investigation policy and procedure that you previously adopted, and it has certain, steps for the board to follow in the event a complaint has been received. Among those steps and what the board can choose to do is really, I think, twofold. In light of the receipt of the complaint, the board can choose to investigate the complaint internally, meaning, designate somebody on the board to be the investigating body or the investigating individual, interview people, make findings of fact, and arrive at conclusions. Or it can be a circumstance where, again, this all assumes you even make a determination that this is a complaint that you choose to investigate. You could then, if you choose not to have an individual member of the board, or say 2 members of the board conduct the investigation, you could farm it out to an independent third-party investigator. We have, investigators that we have recommended in the past. We could provide those names to you to make a determination as to whether or not you would want to use, one person over the other. And then that individual would proceed with, a traditional investigation. They would receive documents from the town, the complaint that resulted in the convening of this meeting. I know there was another request that the chair did receive that would also be made part of that. And then that individual would, more likely than not, conduct investigatory interviews, and at the end of those interviews, make written findings of fact and conclusions as to whether or not the allegations against the town manager have been substantiated or unsubstantiated or are unfounded. And then from that point, the board could proceed with whatever administrative action it chose to initiate or none at all. But that would be, kind of the chronology of events of what would transpire after tonight's meeting.
Allison, is that?
Yes, I appreciate that very
Okay,
much.
thank you. Okay, thanks, Brian.
Sure.
All right, who would like to start us off here? Nobody wants to start this off. Well, that's great.
It's hard to discuss, I'll start. It's hard to discuss investigating a complaint that we can't talk about the merits of investigating.
Well, you can speak to the merits of investigating it. I think when I discussed the process and procedure here tonight with the chair, I believe my advice, and it's merely advice, was that, whatever discussion the select board members have here tonight, is that it should be focused on the procedure, and not the merits of the allegations themselves. Whether or not they're credible, whether or not the individual who advanced them has a certain level of veracity or not. That's for the investigation, to do or to conduct. You're here tonight really just to discuss really the procedure of whether or not you want to initiate an investigation on a complaint, and then how that investigation would look.
I guess I can, has every member of the board had a chance to read the document, preferably more than once?
Yes.
The allegation or the policy?
No, well, the complaint.
Yes.
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 Okay.
Yes.
So is it safe to say that we're all familiar with the document and understand the contents?
Yes.
And able to make a determination from that whether or not we can move forward based on what's contained?
Yes.
All right. And for the public's information, that document becomes a public record after we're done with this proceeding.
So, after what?
After we're done with this proceeding, that document, because we're discussing in public, becomes a public document.
Do you mean done with this discussion tonight?
Done with this discussion tonight, that's correct.
So it will immediately be
It
made
immediately becomes public, yes.
public, so, okay.
I believe it's appropriate for an investigation to be initiated. And I also am of the opinion that the investigator should not be a member of town government, but rather we should get someone from outside who is involved in no way with either of the parties to conduct the standard investigation associated with these kinds of complaints.
Okay. Thank you, John. Thank you, John, for starting us off. Anybody else? John?
I read the document that was submitted by the person alleging the actions on behalf of the town manager. I also witnessed the event, and without getting into what I witnessed, based on what I saw, I think that certain aspects of the complaint warrant investigation. And that if any member of the public feels aggrieved by the actions of either the town manager or any elected official, that they have the right to request an investigation. And I think it's incumbent upon us not to necessarily determine the veracity of the individual that files the complaint, but to take the facts as they've personally witnessed and take those into consideration when making a decision. So with that said, I fully think that we should investigate this situation and concur with Mr. Geiger in terms of getting an outside party to conduct said investigation.
Allison, Becky?
So I have a question, maybe Brian, for you. The information that I've reviewed is not terribly specific as to dates or times or things like that. Is it typical that we would move forward with an investigation and then request that kind of clarity, or is that the sort of clarity to me, it would be helpful to know whether that kind of clarity is available or not prior to making a decision on an investigation.
If, to the extent that there's any ambiguity as to, you know, dates or
Right.
times or when events occurred, that specificity would be drawn out during the course of the investigation.
Okay, so that's
And
not,
then, based off of, you know, a host of factors and the case, or on a case-by-case basis, you would then make a determination as a body as to whether or not, you know, something that happened, say, you know, 27 months ago, should serve as a basis for making a finding, you know, at this point in time that, you know, somebody engaged in some misconduct,
okay,
at that point in time.
thank you.
Sure.
Do you have further comment, or?
No, I think based on that I agree with John.
All right. Becky?
Yes, first of all, I want to say that it gives me no pleasure to be considering this issue. I assume that that's probably true for all of us. I think that all of us are, first of all, owe some gratitude to the chair for having done a large amount of work on understanding the process and consulting with Brian over the last week or two and guiding us through this process. I think we're all trying to be very, very fair in what we do. I think we've already, unfortunately, I apologize that Jennifer did not get informed about this. I think she deserved that early on, and I think it was an honest error as part of our trying to be very careful. I can't speak for myself. I mean, I already said the chair was guiding this process, and I think he is doing an excellent job. That said, I take this very, very seriously. I witnessed the interaction that was the trigger for the complaint. I was very disturbed by what I heard, and I heard the comment that this was not the first time, and that I think is what has concerned me the most, and therefore I am very strongly in favor of having an investigation. I'm very strongly in favor of it being done by an independent entity that has no connection to the town or previous experience with us in this regard. And also I am concerned that we not limit the scope of this investigation to just this one person's complaints. I've heard rumors, I've heard secondhand reports. I think given the fact that
Let's be
4 of
careful.
us on this board have served less than 3 years and therefore have no firsthand knowledge of some history that may be relevant, we should not limit the scope of this investigation to just this one person's complaints.
I think, though, that I don't think we have any ability to review complaints we don't have.
Yeah, let's be careful
I mean-
not to stray from the scope. We're here to decide whether or not there's investigation, not how depth and breadth the discovery during that investigation might be. That's up to the investigator to do due diligence.
Could I just clarify that? I think it's probably up to us to give some guidance as to what we feel should be investigated. And the charges that have been made in this case are of a nature that had this behavior been experienced by other people, they might have been silenced. And we wouldn't have
Let's-
heard about those.
Let's
other
constrain conjecture,
potential.
please.
That's why I think we should not limit the scope.
Let's constrain conjecture, please.
Certainly.
Okay, I have no doubt that were I to call for a motion that we'd have an anonymous request for investigation. May I have one, please?
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Through you, briefly. Again, you know, being that the town manager is the subject of the complaint, he has a right to be
Absolutely.
heard before, you know, any type of a motion of him, if you want
Absolutely.
to afford him that
It's
opportunity.
not intending to cut that off. Yes.
Before the town manager gets to speak, you've heard from 4 members of the Board of Selectmen, but yet you haven't weighed in on this. I'm just curious what your thoughts are before.
Well,
the
that's
town
why I
manager
said
speaks.
my comment about unanimous, so.
Thank you.
But that's-
Actually, you said anonymous.
Did I say anonymous? Oh.
did.
You did say anonymous.
I
that's why
said
was
3
looking
hours
for
and 3
clarity.
hours behind, so
Exactly.
latitude
Those vowels are
graciously
too-
Hence
appreciated.
my question.
Yeah, no, I concur with that the allegations of this nature should always be investigated, and let the investigation go where it does and vet out the truth. That being said, Mr. Town Manager, would you like to take an opportunity?
Nope.
Okay, so that not being said, so, are there any motions available that someone would like to make?
I move that the board conduct an investigation pursuant to the investigation policy previously adopted by this board, authorizing the chair to get a list of investigators from town council that have not worked conducting an investigation on behalf of the town of Groton previously, to review the allegations made by Jennifer Evans in her complaint, up to and including the earliest reference of complaint contained within her allegations.
All right, can we split the request for investigation from the type of investigator we would have, please? I'd like that cleaner, just so we have it clear that there's a request and then what we will do and who will do for me. Do you mind
So you want it,
splitting that?
that we have an investigation?
I can split that. The first part is that I move that this board authorize an investigation pursuant to our investigation policy.
As
An external investigation? Is that-
External investigation. That's why I said everything I
Second.
said previously.
Okay.
How are we?
I was hoping to get 2 votes, one on, do we want to proceed, and the second on, do we want it internal or external? So it's very clear.
Okay,
I move that we proceed with an investigation pursuant to the complaint by Jennifer Evans as described.
second.
Been moved and seconded.
Excuse me, conducted in accordance with the approved investigation policy of this board.
Friendly amendment?
Still seconded.
Yep. All right, any further discussion from the board? All those in favor?
Aye.
I,
I heard that unanimous, not anonymous. All right, and then now we have a discussion item whether or not this should be done externally. John Geiger?
I make a motion that we engage the services of a independent investigator who has not provided services to the town before and has no prior relationships with either party involved in the investigation.
Second.
The complainant or the, okay, I understand, but not necessarily not the board.
Well, I said independent, well, I should have probably added that the board itself not investigate, but rather use the services of a private investigator.
You want to do the motion again? Make it clean.
Yes, I will. I make a motion that the board not take it upon itself to investigate the complaint, but rather to engage the services of a private investigator who has not done work for Groton in the past and has no previous relationship with either party involved in the complaint.
All right,
Second.
thank you, very clean, I appreciate that. Under discussion, Becky?
So my assumption is that this would be a law firm that has experience. We've got some recommendation.
Yes, there are a few. So let's, why don't we take the vote and then I'll allow a little bit of discussion on that, just to get the ball started. Or do we need, are we allowed to? Is that,
Well, I mean,
That's under
if
scope,
it's a
right?
question from, if it's a question from Ms. Pine as to who the investigator would be, whether it's an individual or, you know, say somebody from a firm, I mean, within KP, we obviously have investigators who have conducted investigations for clients in the past. You're looking for, you know, an outside external third-party investigator. We have, you know, quite a few that we know of that we generally call upon when clients are in need of an investigation of this type. We could provide you with a list of names. Some of them are, you know, individuals, some of them, you know, are affiliated with a firm. And we would certainly, you know, follow the mandate of the board that it be, you know, someone who has no prior contact with the town and certainly, you know, doesn't know either the complainant or the subject of the complaint.
Would it be reasonable to give the chair a 2-week deadline to come up with a list of narrowed down candidates to present?
I would like to ask you to elaborate. I'm assuming, and I think it's a decent assumption, but I want to confirm it, that the folks you might recommend are all experienced and trained in conducting investigations of this type.
Oh, absolutely. Yes. I mean, yeah, if we're recommending people who weren't or entities that weren't, we would
As I
be
said, I
potentially
assume we
exposing
would
our
be
clients to
able- I want
liability.
everybody
We're
to
not in that
understand
business. Yeah.
Your suggestion of 2 weeks, I guess I think that there is some urgency in
Yeah,
this
that's why I
matter.
was doing 2 weeks. A week might be tight. I would be willing to, but a week might be tight.
To engage or to conduct?
To come back with a list of final candidates.
Because we have to vote on who it's
So,
gonna be,
so
yeah.
we don't meet on President's
That's
Day.
correct.
So I think it's important that.
All right, I'll come back with it next week.
Just to at least engage. But we need to set the scope of services if you're going to look to engage. I mean, obviously, it's to investigate a complaint. The complaint is in writing. However, who does he or she or they interview? And how far back do they go? Are the parameters you need to set?
Well, and I don't want to control the investigation at all. I don't want the board to be involved at all. But that's not what my goal was. My goal is to come back with a list of resumes and previous experience or qualifications from different sources for the board to be able to narrow those down next week and make a decision on an investigator.
But the cost is gonna be based on the scope of services, and the scope of services are gonna be dictated by what they specifically look at and how far they look at them.
Member Pine, do you want to, John, I see your hand up. I just want to respond to this, apologize, and I know you've got your hand up also. Becky was kind enough to do some investigation on
At the
town's,
MMA.
the MMA on the town's insurance policy that may or may not cover the cost of the scope of this. I
Yes.
personally,
Okay.
I personally would not want dollars to get in the way of doing the right type of investigation. I recognize people may see we're in a budget constrained time, but I'm sorry, the investigation should be done properly by the proper investigator. If it takes the time it takes, that's what it takes. We, the town, the board, the town manager, and the complainant deserve no less than that. So Becky, thank you.
I'll just report that I called the MMA, the Mass Municipal Association, to ask for some suggestions on this, and they referred me to our regional coordinator for the Massachusetts Interlocal Insurance Association, commonly referred to as MIA, M-I-I-A, with whom we have a policy that may be helpful in covering some of the cost of this. They're very familiar with this, and they would like to, our regional coordinator, as an administrator of our policy, would definitely want to be kept informed about how we proceed, and they also had a recommendation that they could make to us. So we have choices available.
Yeah, okay, so John, then Allison.
I feel very strongly that the purpose of this investigation is to investigate the specifics that have been claimed and presented to us. It is not an invitation to go wandering off into all kinds of other areas. If there are other people who wish to submit complaints, then we'll treat those as they come in. But dragging this out into history and all that is inappropriate, because the task is deal with what's on the table and been presented to us. So, Josh, I hear you. If somehow we wanted to define how far back they go, but I don't believe it goes back any further than what the complaint has been presented to us claims.
I thought that's what I said in my motion, but
It was.
yes.
But also reference was made to the other complaint,
It is the board's intention to.
the other letter.
It is the chair's intention to fold his request for investigation into this one as had been discussed previously and appropriately identified by town council as related to this matter.
And everybody needs to understand there are 2 complaints in this package.
There are
Is that correct?
not 2 complaints. There's 1 complaint, and the chair and the town council have considered that the document by which I made my request for investigation could be considered materials in an investigation, would therefore be encompassed by that investigation. Is that an accurate statement?
Mr. Chair, through you, yes, the original, excuse me, document that I believe you received or the board received that was going to be the subject of a prior board meeting and the request that you had put on an agenda is from a recipient witness to this task force committee meeting. So that would be something that would be provided to the investigator, and the investigator would then, more likely than not, interview the individual who submitted that letter as part of their investigation into the complaint for which we're here this evening. That investigation, excuse me, the scope of services of that investigation, whomever the board retains, it would start obviously, from the letter that the board has received that the board is discussing right now. Generally, an investigator would not go off on, tangents looking for or seeking out unnamed individuals or people who have not come forward. But if there is information gleaned during the course of the investigation that the investigator feels necessary to follow up on, that's where the investigation leads and concludes. But the idea of just kind of throwing it open to, the universe, so to speak, your scope of services and the time that investigation would take, I mean, that would be, that would be rather laborious and take too long.
Thank you, Brian.
Sure.
You said it better than I could. Allison, you were next.
Yeah, so it sounds like, Brian, correct me if I'm wrong, that in terms of scope, it would really be the complaint. I mean, that in and of itself outlines the scope fairly
That's right.
cleanly.
Yes.
In terms of the chair getting a list of recommendations, what would you recommend as a process in terms of getting pricing, availability, scheduling? I mean, is it, typically if we're looking for a vendor for something, we're going to bring folks in and have interviews. I don't know how this would differ from.
Yeah, I mean, normally when you're retaining an investigator to conduct an investigation, we have, obviously a list of individuals that we recommend. They would, make themselves available, depending upon their schedule, their overall, workload and caseload. And they would generally have some type of a scope of services or retainer agreement, where they would set forth really, what their function is.
Okay.
What they charge for their investigatory work, whether, there's any type of travel costs associated with that, how quickly they would turn around the product, what they would need from the town, things like that.
Does this fall under procurement
No.
laws? No, this is an exception to procurement laws?
Yeah, no, it's just best business practices. You don't have to go and seek, competitive bids or anything like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
I want to be clear on that. Thank you.
So to me, kind of given, that there is some urgency with this, but also that it's a significant amount of work, looking at the calendar, I don't know, Barry, whether as chair it's viable for you to come forward for 2 weeks from now, which is the 11th, which is not President's, that's the
Oh,
following
yes,
week. We
okay,
don't get
thank
into
you.
that. So we have 2 weeks, and if you could bring forward potentially is
You confuse me.
in the ballpark of 5 names and potentially, with contact already established and their interest or willingness.
I'll,
I don't know how far to have things go for that meeting.
yeah, I'm willing to take that into consideration. John, you have a feedback?
I think there's a good chance that our HR director has a a boilerplate, if you will, of a statement of work for such an investigation as this. I'd be very surprised if we don't.
I'm
This
sure
isn't the first time we've.
I'm sure the
had to deal
lawyers
with
have
this.
the boilerplate themselves for this type of work.
Yeah, and I mean,
Investigators.
through you, Mr. Chair, I mean, I could provide you with names within the next 48 hours with contact information, rates, and generally, they're very responsive in terms of, yeah, I can make myself available, yeah, I can start on X date, and you can proceed from there and present those, you know, to your fellow board members.
Okay,
And
and-
I think it would be helpful to have some, given all the information is
triage.
available now, but just have some estimation from these individuals that, you know, I could start by this
Yeah.
date and I would
Right.
anticipate this as a 2-month process or
Right.
something, as opposed to like, oh yeah, but I can't get to it till August.
So I do
Which-
appreciate the urgency, and I do want to get this done soon, but I don't think I can do a thorough job in 5 days and do something, get back to you by next Monday with
Well, no,
that.
that's what I would suggest in the 2
Yeah,
weeks.
that's why, I
To
know,
have
I
that
know.
information.
That's why I would, if the scope and and that would allow me to vet and get this answer and get the answers back and put it into a spreadsheet for Allison
Yes.
and an email for,
Although, I guess I would suggest that if you do a little bit of work and you find some fairly clear answers and choices before next week,
yeah,
it doesn't serve us to drag this out any longer. than it
absolutely,
needs
but
to be.
given our open meeting requirements of having a posted item on Wednesday morning,
Well, you could post it and then pull it off.
we could certainly table it.
'Cause I would like to be able to attend that meeting.
Oh,
on the
you're not be here
11th,
on the,
But I won't call in and I won't be here.
right.
Oh, so, yeah.
I'll do my best to get it done within a week if I can, and we'll put it as a placeholder on the agenda, and,
So
by the way, we're still under a seconded motion, so we need to
can I
finish
just
that.
ask,
Yes.
make one more comment? Back to Brian, your discussion of scope. I'm certainly not advocating for the openness to the universe. I think I heard you say if other complaints were to be filed, they would be wrapped in, if they're of a similar nature. Is that correct?
Well, I mean, in my experience, during the course of an investigation, the investigator may be provided with information that, you know, you should also speak to individual Y or X or whomever. And if the investigation, you know, leads to that individual comes forward, wants to provide information, that may be part of the investigator's findings. But a subsequent, you know, separate complaint, you would have to almost deal with the same way you're dealing with this.
It can't
You
be,
know.
it can't be added in after the.
No, I mean, I wouldn't recommend that. I wouldn't recommend that. Again, you have a policy, and if it's a fresh complaint, it would have to be dealt with the same way you folks are dealing with this one.
All right, I'm gonna have to wrap this agenda item up, because we're running up against our 7:45 targeted item. I feel I've got enough guidance, I know what the board wants to do, and let's call for a vote on the motion to obtain outside expertise in this investigation. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition? Abstains? So I heard that are unanimous also. Brian, thank you very much for your time and assistance in this matter.
Sure.
And just please, we'll talk.
Yep. I'll be in touch.
Okay.
Thank you, Brian, for all your help.
All right, it is 7:43. We have 2 minutes to handle something, Mr. Town Manager.
Yeah, I'd like to get, Fran Stanley needs to be downstairs at 7:45 for a
Okay.
CPA meeting, I think, so if I can bring her up.
Please, thank you.
Basically, we are in the process of updating our housing production plan. We would like to file a grant application with the Montechusett Planning Agency. And I would ask the board to authorize a letter to go to Montechusett requesting that we apply for a grant to help pay for it.
All right.
And Fran's here to answer any questions you
Fran.
have. It's pretty simple.
Sure. I think this is a quick item. We have a possibility of getting a state grant to have our Regional Planning Commission do our housing production plan that would update it for free. And there's a pending CPC grant application, but if we could find someone to do it for us for free, especially when this is an update, in 2 more years, we'll have the 2020 census, which might show, you know, changed demographics, changed information. We may want to dig in, you know, more after the next master plan to see where we are with our housing production plan. But this time, our current plan expires in 2019, the end of June.
I think all it needs is update, and I think we just need workman-like job, and it would be great if we could get Massachusetts to do it for us for free.
I'm just wondering, what is the ballpark cost of this? Either way, just for my own knowledge.
Sure, I am getting estimates now to go with the CPC application if we had to pay for it, and the estimates so far are coming in, about between 15,000, 20,000. I thought it might be less expensive. I thought an update might be less. But when the numbers started coming higher than I expected, then that was a chance to kind of beat the bushes. Is there another way to get this
Yep.
done?
Great, thank you.
Becky and John?
Go ahead.
What's the timing on knowing whether we would get this?
It's very immediate. We apply in early March. We'd hear back 3 or 4 days later, which is still plenty of time to continue the CPC application if it needs to go forward.
Okay, that was my question. If we were to get this grant, we would not need the CPC money,
Correct.
but if you don't get the grant, we would. Okay,
John?
thank you.
If I'm not mistaken, we pay, as a town, more than a couple of $1,000s a year. Mark can confirm.
$3,621 last year.
That we pay to be members of this regional planning commission. And I have always been wondering.
Exactly.
Thank you all. And as a result, I would like to see us submit a grant request and see if we can't convince them to provide some benefit for
All right.
us.
Services
Is
to
that
the
a
town
motion?
commit-
Is that I'd like to have a motion on that. Can I have a motion on that,
You
please?
can turn it into a motion. Or
Second.
Dawn has it.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Anything further from the public? All those in favor? Aye. I heard that unanimous.
If you
I
could
will
sign that and
this
hand it to
and hand it
Fran, that would be
Fran.
great. Thank you, Fran.
Thank you.
Need help? Give me a call.
John, there's only one copy?
Fran can make a copy, Barry.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Chairman, 7:45, in joint session with the Park Commission, there was a vacancy on the Park Commission, and the way a position gets filled until the annual election is a meeting with the remaining members of the board and the select board get together and decide if they want to interview and make that appointment. We advertised this pursuant to the board's policy. There was one applicant, it was Dawn Black. Unfortunately, Dawn is ill and not available tonight. However, I think we all know Dawn, and if the Park Commission is willing to meet in joint session with the board, we can still take that up. So if you guys want to come up,
Hey, do you guys want to call yourself to session, or you're already in session? That's fine, too.
so as Dawn was the only applicant, I believe you guys interviewed Dawn and were satisfied with his experience and is ready to go?
Yeah, absolutely.
I think Dawn served on the Park Commission for 30 years?
He's got the T-shirt.
Yeah.
T-shirt, very well done.
So I know Dawn can't be here tonight, but I would endorse Dawn's appointment to the Park Commission. He's a very valuable member, and I would ask the board to consider appointing him to fill the vacancy to the election.
So just to be clear, this is till the election?
Yep.
Okay. Becky?
Could we ask them to introduce themselves?
Sure.
You're
Park
on
Commissioner
camera now.
Timothy Shook,
I didn't hear you, sorry.
Park Commissioner Timothy Shook, Evan Boucher.
Anna Elliott? And you must, are there only 4 commissioners, or is there one more?
There's one more. Our chair is not here.
Who
It's
is?
Kenny Bushnell.
Okay. Is there any further discussion from the board? Any questions you'd like to ask our colleagues, our elected colleagues? No?
I make a motion that we appoint Don Black to the Park Commission for the vacancy until the elections.
It needs to be by roll call vote, all 8 people.
Is there a second from the Park Commission?
I'll second it.
There we go. Teamwork. All right, any further discussion? Anything from the public? All right, all those in favor, roll call vote, please.
Manugian, aye.
T-Side?
Deegan, aye.
Pine, aye.
Geiger, aye.
Elliot, aye.
Shook, aye. Boucher, aye.
All right, that's unanimous. Thank you very much. Appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, I'd like to jump down to item number 5 on the
Yep.
town manager's report.
Yep.
And I'd ask you to jump ahead to page, in your packets, to page 10, where there is a map. I'd ask Nick Walco to come up to answer any questions that the board has, but the Conservation Commission has received 2 land donations, which I'll let Nick describe, and in order to get that done, the select board needs to vote to accept those gifts. So, Nick, all yours.
Thanks for having me here. This is kind of a great privilege to be able to, you guys hopefully finish off these 2 really great donations. The one you've got up on the screen right there, you've got marked here as a donation from Calvin Moore. I need to clarify something. The item 5 refers in part to the acceptance of Longley Road parcel from Calvin Moore. And I wish to clarify that Hilda O'Hara, in her last will and testament dated October 16, 2009, gave this parcel consisting of a little over 24 acres to the town of Groton Conservation Commission. Calvin Moore was the one who signed the deed, but he was acting in his capacity as the executor of the estate. So this is truly a great gift from Hilda and her family. This will be called the Best Fitch Preserve. The other one is just about an acre and a half. This is over in the Groton Woods subdevelopment. This provides an access to an existing conservation land. From my understanding, this is, by the way, from Robert Lacombe, a generous donation. My understanding is this was going to be a house lot. There's just a ton of ledge on the property. It just wasn't economically viable, so he wanted to donate it to conservation. So that's what I'm here, and I'm happy to answer any questions if you may have them.
Are both of the, I'm sorry, may I, I'll let the board go first. Any questions from the board? Becky?
I'm sorry, when you give me a map, I look at it and I don't understand, what is chapter land?
Chapter land. Okay, so that's Chapter 61. It means that they are the owner of that land. They have Chapter 61 status, which means essentially they get a lot of tax relief because they're either has their land in forestry or active agriculture. There's even a recreation, although we don't have as many of those in town. So it's quasi-conserved, though it's not really that conserved. That property over on Martins Pond Road that came up, that was
Yes.
under Chapter 61, so the
Right.
town has the option of first refusal of those properties.
Right, okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other board members? No? What's the, can you describe for me the conservation priority on these properties? Well, as accepting them off the tax rolls that
Sure.
we're doing, it clearly feeds some conservation priority?
Yeah, the larger one from Hilda O'Hara, that was identified in 2011 as a priority parcel based off of its size, the vacancy, as well as its proximity to other conservation lands. The other parcel was not identified in that plan, but what it does do is it provides that access point. There's that parcel over there, the larger one, which you can see behind it. It's got an established trail system, but it doesn't come down and really connect into that part of the neighborhood yet. There's been some talk with Michelle Collette, who informed the Conservation Commission that there was an agreement back in the 80s when the subdivision was being permitted that there needs to be some sort of I can't believe she remembers all these things, some sort of a playground. And so this could be another opportunity to work with the Park Commission on figuring out, maybe we can figure out some way to hold that. So as far as the priorities, this one may be a little bit less than the other one, but still it provides critical access to an existing area.
Okay.
I was just going to add a comment that I think it is really wonderful when people donate land, and particularly a very, very large parcel. This is really to the town's benefit, and when Nick said it has conservation value because it's near other conservation land, the reason that that's so important is that that's then wildlife corridors for, and we know that we have a really large diversity of wildlife in Groton, and this helps.
Allison?
I'm just wondering, I think I know the answer, but are there any costs to the town in terms of long-term maintenance or anything like that to accepting either of these parcels, or are they?
Not really any more costs than any other conservation areas. There's the larger one. We'll probably figure out some sort of a way to put a trail in there. So there would be some costs associated with that. The ongoing land management, fighting invasives, dealing with access issues, you know, your typical. But as far as anything out of the ordinary, I don't see anything like that.
Jonathan has his hand
Mr. Greeno, microphone, please.
Will we be filing deeds with these, for these properties to put them in the town's name?
They're going to be signing that
They're
right
gonna be
now.
signing, okay.
Who are they gonna sign
Because
it?
in the past, it's been really hard to follow these types of properties. And so that's great. I know Nick and I had questions. I didn't see those, so I just want to make sure that we had deeds, because then when I'm not here, everybody, you know, we know what they are.
I mean, you're not Michelle Collette and figure this out 20 years later?
No, thank you.
And just a quick comment on his comment there. There's been a number of these observations I've made during the inventory work I've been working on for part of our open space plan. So I just wanted to take that opportunity and plug our public forum that we have coming up again on Thursday at 7 p.m. at the Groton Inn. So please come.
Public forum, 7 p.m. at Groton Inn. There you go. Mr. Geiger.
When I click on get the report here on here, I get a 404.
On the
Can't
website?
get their message, so you want to get somebody at IT and get that sorted out.
Thank you, John.
I just, boom.
For anyone, if for some reason there's an issue with that, you could always email me, conservation@townofgroton.org, but I will get that hyperlink fixed tomorrow.
Josh.
Very much appreciate both offers for land donation, and certainly Hilda O'Hara's land gives a tremendous amount of linkage and valuable space to holdings already had within the town, especially as it not only abuts existing lands, but it abuts almost through another parcel of Walker land. So it's a nice linking and joining. Concerning the lot in the subdivision, it also abuts existing holdings and whatnot. And I think that Mr. Lacombe has been very generous over the years in terms of, through his development, doing that. If this was in, giving us the land previously, if this land was in isolation, I would not be inclined to accept it. But as it abuts that, and in light of his previous offer, is great. In terms of your comment about maybe the town holding it for a playground, if you can't put a house lot on it, good luck putting a playground in there.
Maybe not that particular
But
site.
at any rate, I will point that out. So dangling a carrot when all it is a sweet potato doesn't work. But I think that's nice.
That's one of your stranger analogies.
Yeah, Mark likes my.
I love it when you do
I
that,
like that
Joshua.
one. I'm gonna go use that at home. My kids will roll their eyes at me. All right, Allison,
I wanted to make a motion.
please.
All right.
John, you
Nope,
want to fight for it?
Allison beat me. There you go.
So I move that we accept the generous gift of Hilda O'Hara of a 24.4 acre parcel located on Longley Road as described in our packet,
Okay.
with
Move.
tremendous appreciation.
Second.
All right, the first parcel's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Anything from the public? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition or abstentions? Heard that unanimous.
Please sign the deed.
Okay.
If you hold on, I'll notarize.
We need a second motion if we want to do the second property.
Marion has
Yes, Marion.
You need to speak into the microphone, Mary. Put out.
So, my name is Marion Stoddard, and I'm a former resident of Groton, former long-term resident of Groton. And so I'm here tonight to express my gratitude to Hilda Fitch O'Hara for her generous gift to the town. And I think that it was a wonderful gift and an inspiring gift. And I want to thank not only Hilda, but her family, and for giving this land in memory of the Fitch family. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay. Second motion for the second property, please.
I move that we accept the generous gift of Robert Lacombe, Groton Woods LLC, of a 1.35 acre parcel located off of Winding Way as outlined in our packet.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Anything further from the public? I'll look more closely this time. Apologize for that. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition or abstentions? I heard that unanimous. Thank you very much, Nick.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to move down to other business for the board to consider submitting a letter of support for the library trustees' application for the CPC funds for the library roof. I know Vanessa and some of the trustees are here tonight. You have the information in the packet. I think we talked about this a little bit with the library trustees on Saturday when they came in to present their budget to the board. They are seeking some $378,000, I believe?
$395,000.
$398,000. So I would ask the board to authorize me to draft a letter on the board's behalf to the CPA in support of that application.
I'll inform the board, given that I was the only one who wasn't here on Saturday, I fully briefed on this matter, so don't need to catch me up. Allison, you had your hand up first, I saw.
Yeah, so I'm just wondering, in some of the information, it talks about the additional cost of kind of going with a 20-year roof alternative 5 times over as opposed to the 100-year. Can you just talk a little bit about that and potentially some rough numbers?
Don't have numbers yet because GRLA is still putting together the specs after the final investigations. There was the fall town warrant that authorized that. So I did tell them right after that meeting to make sure to include the difference, the variance that we would see in terms of cost of doing a 100-year roof versus a 20 to 30-year roof 4 or 5 times. And they will provide that.
Okay.
But I don't have those
You're looking for a
numbers yet.
100-year TCO, total cost of ownership for 100 years.
As opposed to the lesser cost multiple times.
Right, but I mean, yeah,
Yeah.
either way, you're looking for a 100-year span of cost,
Exactly.
total cost of ownership.
Exactly. And then the other question is, the application to the CPC, is that only relevant to the 100-year slate alternative? Or is that irrespective of the details of how it's moved forward?
That's for the 1893 building only, which currently has real slate, so we'd have to actually change it with the HDC to go to an alternative. So right now, it would be replacing slate with slate, because the 1893 building is about historic preservation, which includes maintaining the integrity of the building as it is now in the historic district.
So if this were granted and then for whatever reason, a shorter term solution were enacted for the whole property, this wouldn't be relevant, the CPC approval. Does that?
If I might speak, my assumption is that the Historic District Commission has enough authority that they may not allow a non-slate roof.
Well, we can't speak for
Understood.
another board.
Right, but so your question is, could the CPC money be used for a non-slate roof? I think that that's not an option that they would have actually explored.
Well, I guess at this point, that's part of my concern, is that we don't have any numbers in terms of alternatives. We don't have any other information. So to me, going forward with a grant request for one specific alternative, when we haven't seen any exploration of other alternatives, is a little premature.
Well,
That's what I'm trying to
I don't
figure
think
out.
it's speaking for another board to say that the Historic District Commission has control over the visual appearance of buildings within the historic district. And you can certainly see the roof.
Josh?
Well, I agree with what Allison's saying and sort of agree with what you're saying, Becky, in so much as what's there currently on a historic building would be nice to be replaced with what it was originally built with. Hence, the application by the library trustees to the historic preservation portion of the CPC to restore something to the existing current condition. As it applies to the remainder of the building, which is an addition, that does not qualify, in my opinion, necessarily for slate. And looking at an alternative along the lines of what Allison's talking about makes sense, and I think we discussed that on Saturday. And in so much as your application has nothing to do with the addition and is only the front portion of the building, I would recommend that we support it with the caveat that when a motion is made, that if an alternative roofing solution that meets the requirements of the HDC is available, then that the CPC consider that, and based on a vote of them and the library trustees, that they proceed with that option, if that makes any sense. So, I guess what I'm saying is,
I just don't want to,
I hear what you're saying,
Right.
Allison. You want to look at alternatives for what slate is that might cost less than $300 plus
I just want to
$1,000.
understand, I think the HDC does have a lot of jurisdiction in this. To me, there's a financial piece, whether it's for the historic slate roofed portion or any other portion really. And I would hope that, although a secondary concern to the HDC, that it would be something they would be interested in understanding.
So if you made a motion to the effect that you would support the grant application subject to alternative roofing solution pricing that would meet the requirements of the HDC, I would support such a motion.
I might as well.
John Geiger, you've got your hand up for a while. Thanks for your patience.
I believe the trustees have engaged engineering assistants and have done a tremendous amount of homework in terms of what's the best way to go. All that information may not have been shared with the board, but they had an open meeting a few months ago where the engineers were there and explained things. My recollection is there's a tremendous, because of the way the library is and the high-back equipment that's on the roof and so forth, a significant amount of the cost is just getting to the roof. And that has to be factored in because if every 20 years we have to go through that setup cost again, you got to factor that into the price of the roofing and the work to do it. Part of the problem there seems to have been an inferior job done when they actually brought the two buildings together and they were fiddling with the roofing. So I think this is a building that's going to be around much longer than I am, and we want to do it right. So maybe the trustees can provide some of this information to the members of the board.
So we have been very open and everything that we have shared with the community at large. Currently, the engineering firm is out speccing all of this information. They are trying to make the information available on a very tight deadline for Springtown meeting. We don't have that information. If we had that information, we would share it with you. The engineers are working on that, and as soon as we get any of that information, we will share it with you. To John's point, the access to the roofing system is exceptionally difficult, and setting up the scaffolding is exceptionally difficult, will be difficult. It will be a large portion of the cost, I believe. If you put on real slate or you put on a fake slate, the man hours, I believe, again, are similar. It might be slightly less for a fake slate, but you have to drill holes in every tile and put it up. The labor cost and the cost to actually get the people up there. I think in the long run, again, we'll see what the engineers say, but I believe the costs spread out of the course of 20 years versus 100 years. This will be, the investment in slate will pay off. Having said that, what we're applying for right now is for roofing materials for the historic portion of that building. The CPC funding, whether it's slate or whether it is a composite, that's what we're applying for. So we're asking, we realize that this is a burden on the town to put on a roof, a new roof, and whatever kind of roof it is. And so we have in good faith applied to the CPC for $395,000 that we would not have to put, we wouldn't have to borrow money, the town wouldn't have to borrow money for. So we've been trying to do due diligence here, and we hope that you can support this resolution.
And
So-
should it be less than 300, sorry.
I was just gonna say, so the application to the CPC isn't specific to one roofing material at this point?
It's, I think too, what you're asking about, Allison, is about the whole project too. And could they do, like, if the CPC grant went through and nothing else, they could do the work, which is basically removing 25% of the slate or more to do the snow and ice shield protection that we need, that we don't have. That's why we're getting all the ice dams and water infiltration, and we don't have the good ventilation and a balance of insulation in the 1893 building. It could be done, certainly with CPC money, without doing the other parts of the building, but those are the roofs in the worst condition. The slate roof is actually in that's 125 years old, but it's in the best condition of the 3 roofs that we have at the library. So it would not be addressing, it would be addressing part of the problem. Does that make sense?
I think your original question was, does the CPC application specify the material? And I don't.
Yeah, no, we just went with in kind, because the HDC would have to approve it if we changed it from real slate to composite, which is what we're doing tomorrow night, is asking them if the town, if everybody decides that slate is best for the 1999 edition, do they approve that? Because it would be a change from composite to real. So they have to approve that.
Okay, I think we're ready to move forward. Is there a motion to support or not support?
Perhaps I will add one other thing. I'm the liaison to both the library and to the CPC. I, in anticipation of our discussion, looked up to see what else has been requested from CPC. And that's still, the requests are in, but they haven't voted yet. And they meet at the same time as we do, so it's a little bit hard to follow their meetings other than through the documentation. But certainly, this request is one of the, it's much larger than any of the other requests that have been made. My reading of it is, this request is to cover an expense that we are likely, that we have to do anyway. I mean, the roofing of the library is going to come out of, going to have to be appropriated this year or next year, one way or another. So that I think it is a wise move. It's prudent for the taxpayers to apply for CPC money for that portion of it that qualifies as historic preservation, and therefore I think we should support it. The other things that have been proposed are all have varying degrees of worthiness, but are not things that probably we would feel compelled and that we absolutely needed to do every one of those other ones if we didn't have CPC funding.
Okay, is there a motion? John?
I make a motion that we make a recommendation to the CPC that they grant the request from the library trustees relative to repairs at the library.
It's been moved and is there a second?
I'll second.
Moved and seconded.
I was also going to pull up, I can ask, I looked at the actual application if you really want more information about what it says, but I don't know if that's necessary.
I think we've I think we need to move forward and move on. Under any other questions, any other comments from the public? All right, all those in favor of this, of recommending, or submitting a letter of support for the library trustees application for CPC funds for the library roof repair, signify saying aye. Aye. Any opposition?
Nay.
Any abstentions? Heard that 4-1.
Mr. Chairman, I'd ask you to jump ahead to item number 6 on your agenda tonight. Chief Luth is here. I'd ask the chief to come up to the table. Now, I just wanted to do some clarification. We've been battling back and forth the actual name of this particular road. So we've called it High Street, we've called it Powder House Road, we've called it, there was another name that came up.
Church Street.
Church Street. We're gonna go with the road that is designated by the yellow on the map on the wall for tonight.
Where's Bob Collins?
Yeah, I know. We think it's High Street, it could be Powder House, but it's irrelevant. The point is we have a situation on this particular road where we really need to enforce some no parking measures, and the chief and both chiefs are here, and Jonathan are here tonight to talk about it, so Chief Luth.
Good evening, thank you for having me tonight. The issue was brought to my attention by Chief McCurdy that when there's functions going on, including Mass at the First Baptist Church, that parking is happening.
Wait. This is not the First
I'm
Baptist
sorry, I
Church,
apologize.
and
I'm
it's
speaking.
not Mass. This is the First Parish Church Services.
The First Parish Church Services. I did know that, I apologize. But during the services and other functions, parking happens on both sides of that section of road, and Chief McCurdy brought to my attention when cars are on both sides, it's very narrow, and fire trucks or an ambulance cannot get through. I've been in contact with Tom Delaney, DPW Director, Reverend Kemmler, and Lawrence Academy. All parties are in agreement that they would like that to be a no parking area. The parish has actually taken great steps in trying to get people not to park there. They're putting cones out there. Sometimes that works, sometimes it doesn't. And I spoke with the Reverend today, and she's in agreement with this. The sections highlighted would start, depending on what end you're looking at the Main Street end, up to the driveway that's attached to the Dana House, which is on Lawrence Academy property. They would be posted on that side and that side only, allowing parking to happen on the side of the Groton Common. Depending on how tight people park, it will eliminate 4 to 5 parking spaces.
Safety is number one concern. Is there a plan to address that parking change? Is there enough space for services to continue?
If you'd like to speak to that.
As a member of that church with a lot of experience, and I will quote Paul Matisse, whose home is in the former Baptist church. At a function at his house, when police came in, he had to announce to his guests, if there was plenty of parking around here, the church would still be here. This First Parish Church is still there. Parking has always been an issue. There is other parking available. And for years, the church has been encouraging people to not park on this particular section. I fully support putting the signs up. It is a safety issue. And there is other parking that can be found. It will always, be an irritant to some people that they can't park there, but they shouldn't.
Lawrence Academy, if you're looking at the far right of the map, the last parking lot, which is adjacent to their Performing Arts Center, has recently built a sidewalk, a paved sidewalk that attaches essentially to the lot that's behind the offices to the church, making it a little more accessible. People to park there, they can make it to the level of the entrance of the church. As far as my understanding, Lawrence Academy's been very accommodating because they don't need their spaces typically when the church does.
Okay. Any further questions, comments, concerns from the board? Chiefs and assessor, I think we've heard, unless you would like to add. Good, thank you. Anything from the public? All right, I'll take a motion, please.
I move we support the police chief's recommendation to put up no parking signs on that section of road from 119 up alongside the common towards First Parish Church.
I believe we have to amend this to say acting in our capacity as road commissioners.
Correct.
Acting in our
We're
capacity as road
directing him to do
commissioners.
it.
We're
Huh?
directing.
We're directing him
We're
to do it.
Directing
directing
him.
Police Chief Luth to put up no parking signs.
Install and enforce no parking.
Please ask Tommy Delaney to put up no parking signs.
Please
That's what the
coordinate.
board's motion is. Is there any other?
Second.
Yeah, it's been moved and seconded. Is there any other questions, concerns, comments from the board or the public? Seeing nothing, call for vote. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposition, abstention? That one is unanimous.
Mr. Chairman, I'd ask to move ahead to the discussion on a new manager application for Forge and Vine and Groton Inn. I know John and Patricia are here tonight. I'm sorry for the delay. If you guys come up to the table.
Thank you, Chief. Thank you, other chief.
The Joint Chiefs.
Thank you, Joint Chiefs.
So, Mr. Chairman, this is a request to change the manager in both facilities to Patricia Tompkins. She's here tonight, obviously, sitting at the table. The board would be doing this, acting as the licensing authority. Everything's been, all the paperwork has been supplied, and this is an application that goes to the ABCC once the select board takes action on it as the licensing authority.
Can I first, before we start, say that I've been in Boston recently, and I know Boston's like 50 miles from us, but there are people there who know about the Forge and Vine, and I mean, these things that are happening in Groton, the Forge and Vine, as well as the enhancements at Gibbet Hill, they're literally putting Groton on the map, which is absolutely crazy. And having been to the Forge and Vine once, it's quite an impressive thing. And the commitments and the promises that came forward to us, I don't know, when was it, 3 years ago? Longer ago, whatever, have definitely materialized. And I'd like to say thank you for taking that parcel and investing in it and bringing something that this town can truly be proud of on that corner. So thank you very much.
Yeah, I agree. Here.
So, I'm done, excuse me.
I just had a question. Who was on, we're changing the name on the license.
Waddy Francis, the general manager, was on it. Waddy has chosen to resign, so here we are.
I see. Okay.
That was 2 years ago?
A year and a half plus a touch.
But he's,
Okay,
So I'll make a motion that we approve the new manager application for the Forge and Vine and Groton Inn relating to alcohol licensure, appointing Patricia Tompkins to this role.
Well, there's two.
She said Forge and Vine and Groton Inn. That was her motion.
all right.
Thank you.
The motion covers both properties.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Would you like to speak, Patricia?
No,
You don't have to.
No, I moved to Groton about a year and a half ago for the school system, and I started here at the Groton Inn February 26th of last year, and I'm just thrilled to stay on and be a part of the community.
Excellent.
Tricia's very modest, if I could just add, in addition to being a wonderful part of the Migas Hotel Group team, she comes to us as our third hire quite some time ago with a tremendous amount of experience. And it's because of her leadership, as well as Waddy's, that we have the team in place that we do and that things are going the way that they are. So we're fortunate to have her.
Excellent, thank you. All right, we have a motion on the floor, moved and seconded. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposition, any abstentions? I heard that one unanimous as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to jump down to item number 10, which
Yes,
is
the
our
FY
financial
2019
reports.
second quarter financial results.
Yep. And if you go down to page 22 in your packets, you'll see the financials here. I would like to take a couple of minutes to talk about them with the board, to talk about where we are with things and how things are progressing. I want to call your attention to two items, actually three items, that you'll see we are running behind last year. The first one is motor vehicle excise taxes, which you'll see last year at this time, we had taken in $262,218 based on the first three commitments that went out for the year. This year it's down $235. I believe I told you Saturday when we talked about the budget that I was concerned about the trend. We are going out next week or the week after next with the first quarter, the major commitment for fiscal year 19, which is the big commitment, and that is actually $25,000 higher than last year at this time. So I don't know if it's stabilized, it may balance out, but I still have some concerns with those numbers. But I will let you know That's an issue that I brought to the board's attention previously. The second thing I want to point out is building permits. If you look at last year at this time, we'd taken in $566,526, and this year it's $274,000. Last fall, you received a very big building permit from Indian Hill at the time, and that's why that number was so large. I am comfortable that we're going to make our $300,000 estimate this year, but we're not going to have the robust year in building permits that we had last year. And the final thing I want to call to your attention with regards to revenues is personal property and real estate taxes, which you can see last year at this time, we had taken in 52%. This year we're at 47%. The major reason for that is that people were prepaying their personal and real estate taxes last year to take some tax advantages at the end of calendar year 2018, or 17, I should say. So that's why that is up. Other than that, I think Patricia and I will tell you we're pretty comfortable with our revenue so far this year. We think we're tracking very well. With regards to expenses, I am very concerned with general government at the 52%. The major reason for that is the legal budget, which is higher this year than it was last year. That's why general government is at the 52% level this year. And we prepaid the Pepper sewer assessment earlier this year than we did last year. That's the two issues there. The legal budget we're going to have to address at the Springtown meeting. Other than that, I think we're tracking really well in expenses as we've gone through the year, and I think financially we are in relatively good shape as we are each year. And Patricia's here to answer any questions or to offer any additional information for the board at this time.
Josh, I know you love financial stuff. Do you have anything you'd like to contribute first?
I share Mark's concerns, and I think that excise tax revenue is going to be down. I don't think people are buying vehicles, and that is a concern, as the town manager has pointed out. Building permits again. We knew that we were getting a windfall last year with all the development that was going on and the permits that were pulled, and we knew it was going to fall shorter this year by far. And addressing the concern about the legal budget, when we went into town meeting and we approved the budget last year, it was based on the existing contract we had with our previous town council. And that when we chose to change town council, we knew that we were incurring a larger expense as a board of selectmen. So it doesn't come as a surprise to me that we're tracking higher on this. So with that said, I think the last issue that the town manager brought up, which now is escaping me.
The sewer payment to Pepperell, to the sewer commission.
The sewer payment to Pepperell is a whole nother story.
Yeah, we would have paid that, we paid it in May last year. This
Yeah.
year we paid it earlier.
Yeah, so-
They were lined up at Patricia's office waiting for the check, right?
So I think as the town manager pointed out, we may have to address certainly legal expenditures at town meeting, but all in all, I think we're in good shape.
Becky?
What do you mean, address the legal
We have to
expenditure?
appropriate more money to the legal budget to cover the cost throughout the rest of the year. The
So-
budget of $90,000 is not
Right,
going to
so
be sufficient.
Is this one of those things that takes like a 4/5 vote to
Nope,
pay?
it's
and
not
then-
an unpaid bill, it's a line item transfer.
He's got to find money in other budgets to
Okay.
transfer to the
All right.
budget to cover, and
Excellent.
if he can't do
Okay.
that, his only option would be, I believe, to go to the reserve fund transfer as authorized by the finance committee.
Okay, but it's a line item transfer.
Correct.
Or reserve fund transfer, depending on
There's
if
no
we don't have
lines.
money in other budgets.
Again, yeah.
That's
Okay,
what Josh
I
said.
got it.
Yep.
Yep.
All right, Mr. Geiger, you have any comments? Trying to.
I'm all set.
Allison?
Nope.
Can I make one?
Please.
I just want to draw your attention to, under the revenue section, there is a line that says miscellaneous bond premium amortization and other. You're going to notice that there's $288,000 in there that will not be staying in there. That was a bond premium that was a result of our most recent bond issue. So we're waiting for all the outstanding underwriters discounts and such to be deducted from that through our expense warrant. And after that, the remaining amount, most of it will be transferred out to cover expenses on capital projects.
Right.
Will remain, there'll be about 20,000 that will remain in there, but I didn't want you guys to think that that 288 was going to just stay there.
Yeah, that was Mike, I think Mike mentioned on
Yes.
Saturday at the budget meeting about that. Thank you, Patricia, for pointing that out.
Thanks for that clarification. Anything from the public on this? Bud?
No.
No comments?
I'm all set.
All right.
Okay, so
Okay,
back to the.
Thank you very much for that. Appreciate that, Trish. Thanks for sticking with us so long tonight.
Now, Mr. Chairman, I'm going to go through the rest of my town manager's report in order, if that's okay with you.
So we're going to go back to 3, and then 4, and
Yep.
then 7, and then 8, and
We're
then
gonna-
11?
Yes.
Okay.
It's that time of year for the annual Neshoba Chamber of Commerce Taste of Neshoba event. It's going to be held on Tuesday, March 19th, from 5:30 to 8 at the Lawrence Academy. They've asked for a one-day all-alcohol license for the event. I'd ask the board to please vote to issue that license this evening.
So moved.
Second.
No, it was double seconded. Good. Any further discussion? I will say this is one of those great events that we get to have in Groton every year, and I know a lot of people really look forward to it as a pathway into not winter, perhaps soon. All right, take a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition? Any abstention? No, that passed unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr.
I'll
Chairman.
just put in a 2-second request to them that it would be great if there were some kind of allergy information posted in this so that people with food allergies can partake.
We can pass that along to Melissa.
I would also add, it is a great event, and we just endorse an all-alcohol license. Some years it has seemed quite difficult to me to get beverages that were not alcoholic, and they should in fact provide plenty of those too.
As you will recall, we had planned to turn over the operational control of the Four Corners Sewer District to the Groton Sewer Commission once the project was fully completed and operational. This has now taken place. The Sewer Commission voted last month, or a couple of weeks ago rather, that they would take over the control based on a vote of the Select Board. So I am asking you tonight to formally vote to turn over the operation and management of the Four Corners Sewer District to the Groton Sewer Commission.
They were here earlier. Are they not here anymore? I saw a sewer commissioner earlier. Well, okay.
I move that the select board relinquishes authority as the Four Corners Sewer Commissioners and turn over full authority to the Groton Sewer Commission.
Second with appreciation.
I like that.
Okay, we moved to seconded. Any further discussion? Is there anything official we need to do?
That, just please vote.
Just vote and that's
Yes.
it? And it's
Yes.
done?
Yes.
Okay.
Please.
Don't push me. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Abstained? I heard that unanimous.
Mr. Chairman, I respectfully request that the Select Board vote to issue a common victual license to the NESSP Temple located at 99 Shirley Way in Groton. The hours of operation would be from 8 to 8:30, 7 days a week. They do have all the necessary paperwork filed and insurance documentation that they are required. And I will point out that the Board of Health has issued them a food service permit as well. I'd ask the board to approve that license.
All fees have been paid?
All fees have been paid.
So moved.
Second.
I heard a move.
Second.
Okay. Or double. All right, moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Abstentions? Nope.
I want to
Unanimous.
apologize, thank you, Mr. Chairman, I want to apologize to Gail for misspelling her name, but I have appointed Gail, who I know very well, to the Emergency Response Committee with a term to expire on June 30, 2019. I'd ask the board to consider ratifying that appointment tonight, please.
So moved.
Second.
Gail, any,
Not really, just that,
you need a microphone though, please. We can get it to you.
Just that I think it's important to have somebody who lives in Groton to be on that committee. And I do live in West Groton on that, yeah, and that's it, really.
Okay. John, I saw your hand up. before.
Now, my question is an administrative one. What is the correct spelling of the last name?
CHARLMERS.
No, A-L-M.
CHALMERS.
L, that's my fault, I put the R instead of the L.
Track.
Yep.
Right.
John
Again,
Deere.
Gail, I'm very sorry.
John Deere.
Alice Chalmers.
I don't know any. Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, I heard that unanimous.
Mr. Chairman, up to item number 9.
Thank you, Gail, for your volunteering.
The board has authorized, or has decided on their goals. I sent out this document to members of the board, asked for feedback. Select Board Member Pine gave me a couple of corrections, which I put into this, and I believe these are in the final form for the board. I'd ask the board to formally vote to adopt these goals this evening.
As part of this, what we'll do is perhaps, because we're tight on time tonight, we might come back next week and review these and assign them to individuals. Would the board accept that slight change to normal practice?
Can I make a suggestion?
You can always make a suggestion.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd ask particular board members to write to me before next week, letting me know which goals you want to spearhead. I can put it in the packet, and then the board can have a quicker discussion than sitting and debating it that evening.
That sounds like a wise approach. So just to the town manager or not to anybody else?
Just to me, please. And Dawn, of course.
All right.
I move that we,
Okay, go ahead and then we'll. John,
no, if he has a question, I won't move anything until he's done.
John, go ahead.
I have a concern that we still haven't gotten to implementation of what SMART goals is all about. And while we've added measurable benchmarks, we really haven't fleshed out what SMART goals is all about. And given where we are this year in terms of trying to put something together, perhaps we can't get there in one step, but I think all the town departments and all the organizations in the town who make goals by this time a year from now needs to be married to the SMART goal process.
What if we put together a goals policy or edited the goals policy to define that? That would probably be the appropriate methodology.
I think that will come up in our review of all of our policies.
I would preempt it rather than waiting. If it's that important and it's on top of our mind, I would rather get it done. And there's no harm in reviewing something that's necessary early. John, what do you think about that?
I'm open, as long as we have a goal as an organization of getting the organization to embrace the
Best
SMART
practice.
goal discipline.
Best practice, yeah.
That's what's really important to me, because it is best practices. And
Becky?
it's not,
Oh, sorry.
it doesn't take rocket scientists to figure out a SMART goal. It just takes a little thinking, and so that's where I'm at.
So I don't really know, there's obviously something that is meant by that term, so perhaps we could have some explanation or definition or whatever of that before I feel like I can't just say, oh yes, we should all embrace that, because I don't really know what it is I'm saying we should embrace.
Well, I will send you a little 17-page booklet momentarily that talks all
Why
about
don't
it.
you send it to the town manager and have him forward it to the rest of the board?
And we'll bring it up
John.
in another
All right, please.
agenda item as a policy item. In the meantime, what's on the table now, and I appreciate John bringing that up, is these goals and whether or not we wish to accept them.
Was there a motion?
Josh was
I
about to,
was
but he deferred.
about to, but I deferred, so now I will make a motion that I move that we accept the 8 goals as outlined in our packet this evening for not fiscal year, but calendar year 2019.
I'll second.
Been moved and seconded. Any further discussion?
Just to echo what Mr. Geiger said.
Been moved and echoed. Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Any abstentions? I heard that weak unanimous.
Mr. Chairman, with regards to the town manager goals, I had changed the town-owned property goal to reflect what the board had discussed at their last meeting. Subsequent to that, Allison put them into a SMART goal movement, which I don't agree with all the dates and times she put in there. But what I'd ask the board to do tonight is at least approve what the goal is. How I reach those goals, I think Barry, Allison, and I need to get back together and put them in the SMART goal format. But I don't see any reason why you can't approve the 5 goals that we have outlined here tonight. That's just my opinion, but I'll leave it up to the board to decide what you want to do.
What's the board's pleasure? Would you rather vote on a document whole, or would you rather vote on the objectives and then the goals and how we achieve those goals?
I'm sorry, what was the choices?
Would you rather vote on a document in whole where everything is explained out, not only the goal, but how you're going to measure success against that goal? Or would you prefer to say the goals are accurate, let's vote later, another day, on how we measure success or failure of that goal?
So the second choice is to vote on this document that's in front of us and to accept that at this point.
No.
No.
The second choice is to vote on only the A's in this document and assume the B's do not exist right now.
Oh. So was the first choice to accept the document as it's written? Or
No, the first choice was to revise the document and then come back when the A's and B's are ready for prime time and we can vote them together. So I'm asking for either a split vote, or we're voting the A's today and we'll come back and vote the B's in the future, or no vote at all tonight. And we're gonna do them both together at a future date.
Good.
Yeah, that just, it's fine. Please tell me.
You know me. I think these goals are so oversimplified as opposed to what they really should be. There's no question that goal number 1 is a given, and the town manager's been working hard on that. And you know, why you can memorialize it in writing. 1, 2, are unquestionably part of his day-to-day operations. So is 4, but I mean, you're just spelling it out. So is 5. They're all given. I mean, you really want to put goals there. I mean, you got to bite off things just the way that we did for ourselves, which we spent on an enormous amount of time. So
Let me ask a
obviously, the
question.
town manager, one of his goals, and the first and foremost goal should certainly be work with the Board of Selectmen to assist us in accomplishing our goals.
So why do I have separate goals? Shouldn't my goals be your
I'm
goals?
trying to get the.
I agree with you.
I'm kind of going there, Mark.
I agree with you 100%,
Okay?
Josh.
I mean, this is just ridiculous. I'm not gonna support these goals.
Okay.
Becky?
So, I will say that I wish I had paid more attention and pointed this or realized this earlier, but when I read the town manager's self-evaluation, I realized, oh, so the whole evaluation process is tied to these goals, which I also thought were really not robust at all. They didn't include support the select board in achieving their goals. And most of those things that are listed, I think, are in the normal scope of his work that, of course, need to be done. So it does seem, it was when I realized that, oh, this is what we then evaluate him on in another year. It doesn't provide any opportunity for growth or, I don't know.
You're not just evaluating me on my goals, you're evaluating me on my job performance, on everything I do.
Well, true. There is the check mark part, but your self-evaluation is tied to the goals.
Agree.
Allison?
So pragmatically, it's sounding to me like we need to kind of step back and take another stab at this. My only other comment would be just to express frustration that we've spent as many weeks as we have with this in our possession, and to hear 2 members of the board just now kind of responding to these and saying they're ineffective as if they've read them for the first time tonight is really frustrating for folks who have spent time and effort on this. So, for what it's worth.
Well, just for the record, as one of the people that have commented tonight about that, is when else have we talked about this? We talked about our goals. We talked about adopting our goals. it was made clear to us that the chair and the vice chair were to sit down and did so with the town manager to adopt goals. We got them out there, but we've really never discussed them before tonight.
Josh, unfortunately, you weren't at the meeting the first time the board talked about them.
So then,
This is the first time you've seen them.
this is the first time that I've had the opportunity to comment. So while I understand your concern over my comments, by the same token, I think as far as I'm concerned, as the town manager said a moment ago, that goal number one is to assist the Board of Selectmen in accomplishing our goals. Okay, certainly goal number 4, I think, makes a tremendous amount of sense, and that should be there. But other than that, you want to say, the rest of them in there, go ahead and say it. I think it's a given.
I acknowledge that I didn't internalize, I didn't fully take in what this set of goals means. I had, the first time we discussed it, had some public comment feedback to me about, that's a little weak. We heard someone in the audience say some of this isn't that normal part of the job that he's doing.
This is not the first time that any of us except for Mr. Geiger have gone through this process. I'll just reiterate that. So I know that when tasked with this, Alice and I sat down and tried to think very hard about specific outliers that aren't contained within the normal parameters of our goals to task the town manager with that needed to get done for the success of the town. If you guys feel like they're no-brainers, I kind of feel they're important enough to be mentioned and they should be highlighted because we have some challenges with town-owned property and how we vet that out. We have some challenges with the potential 2021 operating capital budgets and how we start to fund those and get ahead of the upcoming challenges we might have. So it's fine. If we want us to go back to the drawing board, Allison and I, we'll go back to the drawing board.
I mean, since we need to meet anyway, the three of us to talk about the what I think I termed the smartification of these, why don't we take a shot at it? Not ask the board to approve anything tonight. We'll come back next week if that works for folks schedule-wise. And maybe if we clarify some of these, folks will understand a little bit more why we felt they were important.
Yeah, let me ask a question. Is it within the town manager's job description that he assists the board with their goals and work?
That's my job, yeah.
Right, so I guess I kind of felt like that goes without saying, that's why. As you said, it's what he does. He's done that for as long as I've been on the board, but that's okay. I left out the obvious things I thought were important. Okay, so we'll table this and move on.
Mr. Chairman, right from the frying pan into the fire, pursuant to the town manager's review policy, you're supposed to disseminate tonight a clean copy of my performance review. So I'm giving it to you to disseminate.
I handed you that.
Yes.
Okay.
We will officially consider that disseminated.
Mr. Deegan.
Thank you.
And pursuant to our policy, we normally have 21 days. My calculations and discussions put that at President's Day. Therefore, we'll have this due the day after President's Day, since that's a holiday.
What's the date?
That would be
22nd.
February 22nd of 2019.
No, I
The
don't.
19th.
February
So I
19th?
believe
It's
it's
Tuesday, the 19th.
Tuesday the 19th of
Tuesday.
2019.
I'm sorry, Barry, my bad. I was thinking January.
Can you do it before then? It's 3 weeks. If someone feels they can't do that, let's.
Yes,
You can't do that?
yes, I can.
Yes, you can do that.
Let's do February 9th.
For you, okay. All right. So by February 19th.
We return these to you, Barry, or to
No,
Melissa?
so the process is that these get delivered to Melissa, and there's an electronic copy already attached to emails that went out when Mark sent us his self-evaluation. So you have an electronic copy. You do not need to fill out a paper copy. If you're welcome to, it's not a problem, but please don't feel obligated one way or the other. Please do not send them to me. That would be a violation of the open meeting law. Please make sure they go to Melissa, and when Melissa has them all, she'll contact me and let me know.
And then you'll do a compilation.
And then I'll follow our policy exactly. Yes, it's actually, policy's in the packet.
Yeah.
I'll follow the policy to the letter, and I might have to involve town council to do it, but I'll make sure I
Just
do it.
keep in mind, Mr. Chairman, that as part of the board filling out the self-evaluation, before it goes to Melissa, board members should meet with me individually.
What?
That's your policy.
We have to meet with you before we send it to her?
In our policy, it
We review
says
it, yeah.
that we must all sit down with the town manager to go through our evaluation. So what you need to do is, you can't give it to the town manager, you have to give it to the HR, and then HR has to give it to you, Mark.
No.
No?
No. I can meet individually with the board members
Yes.
on my evaluation before it goes to HR. That's what your policy
So we
says.
send it to him first?
Send it to him, it's gonna be a problem.
No, the policy states, the chair will request the town manager prepare his, her self-evaluation, which shall be disseminated to each board member, with the instruction, review the evaluation and send written comments regarding the town manager's performance to the human resource director. The human resource director shall be responsible for receiving each board member's written comments. The HR director shall deliver the comments to the chair, will take it. Any questions, blah, blah. On number review procedures,
Number 4. halfway
on number
through.
4, on number 5, hold on.
No, number 4, individual board members are required to meet with the town manager to review their comments
Prior to submission, right, so,
Thought that's what I said.
yes.
So-
Well, the problem is this, it says each member shall provide written comments on their blank evaluation return to the human resource director. Then it says individual members are required to meet with the town manager prior to the submission. So we should reverse those
Here we
sentences.
go again
So
with our
we're
policy.
required to meet with him. Are we required to have submitted the review to him?
No. Well, you can't review something,
How are you gonna review me without me seeing what you wrote?
Because the policy says it must be submitted to the HR director and not to the town manager. So
Because
this-
if you give it, no, Josh, let me interrupt. Because if you give it to the chair, the problem that we had last year is after you met with me and I reviewed it, you gave it to the chair. That was the violation. So we amended the policy that it goes to the HR director. She compiles them before it goes to the chair. The process in which you're supposed to meet with me and review me with your written comments before it goes to HR has not changed. That's what you've done for the last several years. That's what you should do here. Is there a hesitancy to put something in writing and share it with me? Ultimately, I'm going to get it, right?
No, there's not a hesitancy whatsoever in giving it to you. There's a hesitancy in watching this thing get so screwed up for the last 5 years.
It won't this
Not
year.
to screw it up again.
I agree with you 100%.
How about that?
I agree with you
That's the
100%.
hesitancy.
Yep, I agree with you.
yeah, so here's the process, all right? On or before the 19th, please review this with the please review it with the town manager. After you review with the town manager, you don't have to change anything, it's just a review. It's just, nothing, just like with any employee review, you review it with them, and then it goes in their quote-unquote file. It's not a review and then revise, it's a review. And then it goes to the human resources director, and then she'll compile it for me.
So just for the record, and I'm not trying to
Yeah.
be difficult, are you suggesting once we complete it, we email it to the town manager so he can look at it, so when we meet, he has received it beforehand? That's what I'm asking.
That's what you've done in the past, Mr. Chairman.
I would think that's the more effective way to do this.
I'm recommending that you follow your own guidance in how you get this to town manager. If I would prefer to email it to him, but nothing in our policy states how that shall be done, so I can't control that. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, item number 12, I put on the agenda tonight, or item number 11, I should say. I put on the agenda, we had a meeting on Saturday with the Finance Committee and the Select Board to review the budget. I just offer some comments to the Select Board and the public. I thought our department heads did an outstanding job presenting their budgets, answering questions from the members of the Select Board and the Finance Committee. I believe we're off to a great start on the review this year. A couple of items that the board will need to think about moving forward is the final report from the task force on what to do with the fire department, and ultimately what to do with the school assessment from Neshoba Tech and the Groton Dunstable Regional School District. We will have a really good handle on Thursday on what Neshoba Tech's assessment is going to be. I know some of you have signed up to go. I know Patricia will be there at the meeting. I may go. I haven't decided or not. I may have a building committee meeting that morning. If I don't, I'll probably attend with Patricia. But, you know, that will be a known. You have a summit next Wednesday night at 7 o'clock with the Groton Dunstable Regional School Committee and representatives from the town of Dunstable, hopefully, to look at their budget. And then the Finance Committee is going to schedule another meeting to discuss any additional information that they have. But I'm happy to answer any questions you have, but I thought we had a really good meeting on Saturday, and I was really impressed with the way that meeting went. I hope the board members that were there agree. Be happy to answer any questions that you have.
Any comments from board members? Okay, this item will be on every agenda from here until town meeting, and to continue to update the budget item, yes. We've covered most of the other business. I'm going to add one item under other business, which is February schedule, because it's important, and I'd like to do an open session. I have some obstacles in February due to travel and childcare that I may not be able to be here for the beginning of some of the meetings. I'll be able to participate remotely until 8:30 on some of them. If any, I need to understand from members of who is not going to be able to make what dates, and can please email them to me so I can compile that to make sure we can meet on the appropriate dates, which is the 4th, the 11th, am I getting that right? The 4th, the 11th, and the 25th of February are 3 dates. And I actually think I have to miss 2 of those for the first hour and a half. So I'll be remote. So we cannot have...
I think the 25th, the one I'm going to miss, may be the challenge.
Well, so that's why I wanted. People can please tell me they're going to be available. And if anybody on those dates is going to be sick or whatnot, you got to let me know ahead of time so we can cancel the meeting with enough notice. Because we will not have a quorum, and it's no point. We can't just have a meeting at 7:30, at 8:30, and cable and all that other people get through.
You don't want to just know right now?
Good way to do it.
No, my brain cannot handle it right now. So please, if I could get that, so I can put it on a calendar and figure it out, I'd appreciate that. It's part of scheduling. It's covered under open meeting law exception. Please get that to me. I'd appreciate that. And due to the events of this past couple of weeks, I've been unable to compile a list of what I reasonably expect will be on the February agenda. So I hope you'll give me some latitude in trying to come up with what might come up in the future. All right, ongoing issues, Mr. Town Manager.
Yes, I do have a couple of updates for the board. On the senior center building project, I sent out an email to the board last week and the members of the building committee outlining some issues that we were having with the senior center project in terms of some of the inclement weather that had caused some flooding of the site, which had led to some concern from our architect and our clerk of the works. The building commissioner had, in fact, issued a stop work order on the interior work. They could still continue with the roofing and the exterior of the building, but until it dried out because of all that rain. I mean, the weather just, it was just the perfect storm where we had, you know, freezing weather, snow, and then all of a sudden 55-degree weather and rain, which led to some issues. We had a meeting this afternoon in my office in which I asked all the principals from the construction company to come into my office, along with the building inspector, the clerk of the works, and the architect. We went over all of the issues. I think we have a good plan moving forward on how to address the concerns that were raised. I'm comfortable that we're on top of it. I have the utmost faith in our architect and our clerk of the works that are just doing a wonderful job for us. I mean, Greg Yanchenko, one of the best architects I've ever worked with in terms of really being on top of the project and the design and making sure and holding the contractor's feet to the fire to make sure that he's doing his project correctly. So I think we reached a good conclusion today. I think it was a good meeting, and I expect us to continue on with the building project to the benefit of the taxpayers and residents of Groton. I'll be happy to answer any questions that you have on that.
Any questions from the board? No. Thank you, Mark. Appreciate the update.
With regards to the charter approval, we're in discussions right now on whether or not we need to re-vote and put a placeholder on the annual town meeting warrant for it since it was 2 years since the original vote was taken. I think we had a vote last year when we changed the name of the select board, and that re-voted everything again. I think we might be all set, but we're working with Representative Harrington and Senator Kennedy's office on this. We'll put a placeholder on the warrant. I talked to the chair about this in the event that we need to do that. But we are hopefully going to get this charter approved before the 10-year review session is up for the next review.
Just for edification on that, the clerk had previously come up, our town clerk, Mike Bouchard, had come up with this last time, and he put together a trail of evidence, you will, that we have voted, and it seemed to satisfy that, so he's gonna try the same approach, and hopefully that will help us avoid a need to re-vote at Springtown meeting. I'm just want to be safe and cover all our bases, just in case.
I agree. And then on the 119 sidewalk installation, the board had asked for the DPW director to do a review and reach out to Mass Highway. He has done that. We have documentation, and he is contacting Mass Highway with our so-called punch list. And so that has also been done. So the follow-up on that is ongoing, obviously, once the weather gets better. With regards to the Florence Roach Elementary School feasibility study, we're following the MSBA process, and the first step in the process is to hire a owner's project manager. Once the OPM is on board, the next step would be to hire the designer and go through the feasibility study and the like. We put out a request for proposals through the MSBA process, and I have to tell you, and I've been doing this a long time, it's the most OPM applications. We got 13 applications for OPM, and Allison and I have spent many sleepless nights reading, 70-page thick separately proposals, not combined, right? 70 separate proposals. The subcommittee is meeting tomorrow night to narrow the list down based on our review, to see who we're going to interview. Once the OPM is on board, then the next step in the process would be to hire the designer. So that process is underway. One of the things I applaud Allison, sometimes I don't applaud Allison when we have to do, but I'm joking.
It's mutual.
But in this particular instance, Allison is holding our feet to the fire in process to make sure that the public has input, that it's a really public process, and that there's a lot of input before a final determination is done, because this is a major undertaking. This could potentially be a $65 to $70 million project. So I'm enjoying it. I don't know if you are, but I am.
Yeah.
So, yes, Becky.
So I think I spaced out for a minute there. We're hiring an OPM now, that's owner's project manager?
Yep.
To oversee what?
To help with the feasibility study and the hire of the designer for the project. MSBA requires the OPM be hired before you do anything else.
We are not, that's the
school district.
School district
Yep.
that's hiring that.
Yep.
I see. Okay, but the decisions haven't really been made yet about, or have they been made, that where?
No, that's what this feasibility study is all about. You need to have the OPM in order to do that feasibility study.
Okay.
Thank you for the Herculean work to go through 70 mind-numbing proposals and take them detail by detail and get it right. So appreciate that triage.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun.
The OPM is required by state law.
Yep.
And it actually, when you look at the models, it's a duplication, because then we then have another project manager, but the state says you have to have this OPM.
Yep, that's correct. We are following the MSBA process to a T. So I'm very pleased with that, and I'm looking forward to going through that. That's all I have for updates. I'll be happy to answer any other questions that you have. I'd ask the board to eventually go into executive session.
Yeah, I will note that I asked Mark to add item number L to the ongoing issues list, which is the, I gave you guys documentation at the last public meeting regarding voting. So whenever people are ready to bring that forward again, you have to let us know. It's not in my hands anymore. So it's on this as an ongoing issues to remind you. If you decide you'd like to make forth a proposal, that's why it's there for. Additionally, Mark.
Yes, Mr.
Can you please put the Green Communities discussion on the next agenda?
I already made a note of that, absolutely.
Thank you. Okay, because that meeting was on the 17th and we haven't followed up
It's
on
on
that.
there's going to be two major issues on your agenda next week, Mr. Chairman, if I may.
Yeah.
The green communities and then the ticket tax discussion.
Okay.
For the
Exactly.
ticket tax.
All right, perfect. Thank you very much.
All right, so minutes of regularly scheduled meeting minutes of January 14th, 2019. Has everybody had a chance to review these?
Yep, I move that we approve them as presented.
Been moved?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Any abstentions? Nope, we're good. Okay, that was unanimous. All right, can I please get a motion to enter an executive session and return to public session?
I move that the select board enter into executive session pursuant to MGL Chapter 30A, Section 21A, Clause 2, to conduct strategy sessions in preparation for negotiations of non-union personnel, or to conduct collective bargaining sessions or contract negotiations with non-union personnel, purpose to discuss a fire chief's contract, and also an executive session pursuant to MGL Chapter 30A, Section 21A, Clause 7, to comply with or act under the authority or of any general or special law or federal grant and aid requirement. The purpose of this discussion is to consider releasing executive session minutes that have yet to be released, and then upon completion to exit into regular session to continue our meeting.
Second.
Thank you, Josh. Appreciate that. All right, roll call vote on that.
Manugie and I.
Peace, aye.
Deegan, aye.
Pine, aye.
Geiger, aye.
All right, we're now in executive session. We'll take a short break while we give Noah a chance to... We're all good? All right, welcome back to the select board meeting of Monday, January 28th. We have just exited executive session and returning to public session, where we'll consider two items. The first item is to discuss ratifying the fire chief's contract.
Mr. Chairman, the Board of Selectmen had entered into negotiations with Chief Steele McCurdy on a new 3-year contract effective July 1st, 2019 through June 30, 2022. In 2019, it would call for a salary of $125,000. Years 2 and 3 would be subject to his performance review up to 3%. 3% if he exceeds requirements, 1% if he meets requirements, nothing if he does not meet requirements of the job. We also allowed him to participate in the town's sick leave plan to accrue sick leave, which he does now. We just clarified it. We also allowed him to participate in the town's longevity program after 10 years of service to the town. He's going into year 6, so that'll take effect 4 years from now. Other than that, there were a couple of minor word changes and clarifications within the contract, but those are the cost matters. I would ask the board tonight to vote to ratify that agreement.
I move that we ratify the agreement as just outlined with the fire chief.
It's been moved. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Deegan. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any abstentions or opposition? I heard that unanimous. The next item up is to release several executive session minutes that have been approved, and I'm going to go down a list of those, and please correct me if I mention one that should not be there. October 17, 2017, Part 1, January 8th, 2018, January 16th, 2018, February 6th, 2018, February 26th, 2018, Part 2, March 12th, 2018, Part 2, March 12th, 2018, Part 3, April 2nd, 2018, April 9th, 2018, June 25th, 2018, July 9th, 2018, August 27th, 2018, and 12/3/2018 and 1/7/2019. Excuse me, December 3rd, 2018 and January 7th, 2019.
Those are correct, Mr. Chairman.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any abstentions? Any opposition? I heard that unanimous as well. And with that, we are adjourned.
Thank you, everybody.